Hey everyone, it's Nathan Orenstein with The No Show, here to rank the Best Picture Oscar nominees of 2021. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This last year was kind of a disaster for movies. Theaters got shut down, release dates got pushed back, and it seemed like excitement for film as a whole was kind of pushed to the side because of all this. Despite all this, the 2021 class of Best Picture nominees is surprisingly strong, and I think it stacks up with just about any other year's nominees. In fact, I'd give every one of these films an 8 out of 10 or above, except for the first film in the ranking, which we'll get to. If you're unaware, these are the 8 films that are up for Best Picture at the Academy Awards this year. The Father, Judas and the Black Messiah, Mank, Minari, Nomadland, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, and Trial of the Chicago 7. Let's get right into these rankings. Coming in at 8th, I've got the film with the most nominations of the entire 2021 Oscars, Mank. Written by Jack Fincher and directed by David Fincher, Mank follows Herman J. Mankiewicz as he writes Citizen Kane in the 1930s. Everything about the production for Mank is phenomenal, from it being shot in black and white, to the set design, to the costumes and makeup, to the cinematography, to the orchestral score. Even the acting is top-notch with standout performances from Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried. I really can't blame it for racking up all these nominations since it checks so many of these boxes. That being said, Mank is really boring. The subject matter just isn't gripping enough for a full movie, and unfortunately, I don't think David Fincher's direction does quite enough to elevate it to really that great status we've come to expect from him, even though his direction is really good here. I would actually probably say this is my least favorite of his movies, with the exception of Alien 3, of course. Don't get me wrong, Mank is not a bad movie. It's not even a mediocre one. But when compared to the other 7 movies in this bunch, it was no question. This had to be in last. From here on out, I think each of these films is great or better. Coming in at number 7, though, is The Trial of the Chicago 7. Written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, it's about a group of anti-Vietnam War protesters who are charged with conspiracy and crossing state lines with the intent of inciting violence at the 1968 DNC in Chicago. With Aaron Sorkin, the screenplay is always the name of the game, and he does another great job here. But this time he also takes a big step forward as a director as well. He's also got a great ensemble cast to work with, and nearly every single one of these members does a really good job. What The Trial of the Chicago 7 lacks is just a bit more focus on certain aspects and people in the story that could really tie everything together here. And as great as I think this movie is as a courtroom drama, I don't think it really does much of anything to differentiate itself from other great films in the genre. It's missing that one thing that'll really elevate it to the next level, but for now we'll just have to settle for a great, if not relatively safe, Aaron Sorkin courtroom drama this time around. Next up at number 6 is Promising Young Woman. Written and directed by Emerald Fennell, Promising Young Woman is a revenge story that follows a woman whose best friend committed suicide after being raped at medical school. No, that is not a very fun synopsis, but Emerald Fennell has managed to create a film that operates as a fun thrill ride while also providing very powerful statements about sexual assault, trauma, and vengeance. It's covered in a glossy coat of candy-colored paint and features a playful soundtrack that also has a very dark undertone. At the center of it all, though, is a brilliant performance from Carey Mulligan, who captures the power of a woman on a warpath, but who also suffers from the trauma of losing a best friend at the hands of such a terrible series of events. This warped combination of disparate feelings and emotions ends up creating a very entertaining black comedy thriller. No, the combination doesn't always work, and I think the ending is a bit questionable, but what we get is a very entertaining and effective thriller that also feels incredibly important in its ability to open up discussions surrounding sexual assault. From this point forward, any of these 5 films could win Best Picture, and I wouldn't argue it at all. They're all amazing, and I couldn't recommend each of them enough, but I gotta rank them anyway. And coming in at number 5, I've got Nomadland. Nomadland is written and directed by Chloe Zhao, and it's about a 60-something-year-old woman who has lost her husband and also most of her possessions in the Great Recession. She becomes a nomad, traveling across the US in her van. Nomadland feels so authentic in everything it does, from the incredibly down-to-earth performance from Frances McDormand, to the use of actual nomads for many of these characters, to the beautiful cinematography that captures the amazing expanses of the American West. There's a lot of underlying sadness regarding loss and moving on in Nomadland, but it's conveyed in a way that honestly feels really comforting. It's a very reflective and meditative film that speaks volumes by showing rather than telling, and I think Chloe Zhao's direction is almost certainly going to be awarded with the Oscar for Best Director here. For what it's worth, this is also my prediction to win Best Picture at the Oscars as well. Nomadland is easily the hardest film to describe on this list, so do yourself a favor and go check it out on Hulu right now. At fourth place, I've got Judas and the Black Messiah, which is directed by Shaka King and written by Shaka King and Will Burson. It's the true story of FBI informant Bill O'Neill, who was hired to infiltrate the Black Panther Party in Chicago and gather intel and subsequently betray Chairman Fred Hampton. It's an incredibly timely story, unfortunately, but that's not what makes this such a fantastic movie. It's Shaka King's ability to create a film that feels very emotional and very powerful while also just being extremely well made and very entertaining. It certainly helps that the cast is phenomenal with the likes of Lakeith Stanfield, Daniel Kaluuya, Dominique Fishback, and Jesse Plemons. I honestly don't have too much to say about this one. It's just a film that really does practically everything right while still managing to be incredibly gripping. I think the trailers for Judas and the Black Messiah do a really good job of showing you what you're going to get, and I also have a full in-depth review of this one if you want to check that one out too. In third place, I'm going with Sound of Metal. Written by Darius and Abraham Martyr and directed by Darius Martyr, it's the story of a metal drummer who loses his hearing. There's a lot of sadness and frustration here, but it's also a film about community and the strength to overcome. Riz Ahmed is phenomenal as Reuben Stone, and he perfectly captures the many emotions that come with losing such a vital part of your life and subsequently having to completely change your lifestyle because of it. Similar to Nomadland, Sound of Metal actually uses real members of the deaf community as part of the cast, and watching Reuben get assimilated into this community is honestly really beautiful. Paul Raci is also great here as the leader of this shelter for deaf alcoholics, and he adds so much to every single scene he's in. Sound of Metal also uses, sound in a super interesting way, mimicking what a person who's losing their hearing might actually experience. Overall, it's a really unique film that shines a light on an underrepresented part of our community in a really positive way, and it also features a great lead performance from Riz Ahmed. This is also the one film on the list that really kind of changed how I see the world, and I think that's really cool when a movie's able to do that. My personal runner-up is The Father, which is about an elderly man struggling with dementia that's getting worse and worse, and his daughter that has to take care of him. It's written by Florian Zeller and Christopher Hampton, directed by Florian Zeller, and based on his own play of the same name. The Father is a brutal film that's honestly difficult to watch at times. Anthony Hopkins does such a phenomenal job here as the lead, and I honestly forgot I was watching a character. Watching him slowly lose his mind is disorienting, it's frustrating, and it's ultimately really depressing over the course of this film. Florian Zeller chose such an interesting way to tell this story, often putting us directly in Hopkins' confused state of mind, emulating the effects of dementia in ways that I won't spoil here. It often feels like a circling of the drain that inevitably ends with a fall into the darkness. It reminds me of Marriage Story from 2019, my personal favorite movie of that year, in the way that it's nearly flawless, but I don't really have a desire to rewatch it just because the emotions on display are so painful. But The Father really is that good, and I recommend it to anyone who doesn't mind feeling completely destroyed by the end of a movie. I haven't even mentioned Olivia Colman's fantastic performance here either, and her suffering watching her father slowly lose his mind is not only compelling, but downright depressing too. I know I've sold The Father on how extremely fun it is to watch, but it truly is an amazing film, and it deserves every nomination it was awarded. And finally, at first place is Minari. Funny enough, Minari is actually probably the most standard film out of all the nominees. It's about a family of Korean immigrants who move to rural America and try to make it. It doesn't really have anything particularly exciting happen, and the pace never really picks up above a brisk walk. While it lacks that big blockbuster Hollywood appeal, it does everything perfectly and is honestly one of the best pure dramas I have ever seen. The cast is one of the best I've seen in years, and every actor has such great chemistry with one another that it really feels like the Yi family is a real family. Writer and director Lee Isaac Chung has also done an amazing job of taking what could have been a very standard and even boring family drama and making it so much more than that. You really get a sense of his directing style too, without him doing anything too in your face with it. The score is just incredible too and does so much to add to the style of direction here. I really don't have much else to say about Minari because it truly is a very simple film, but it uses its potential to the absolute maximum and makes for the one masterpiece out of the 8 nominees. I couldn't recommend it enough, and I really hope it pulls off an upset and wins Best Picture. Thanks for sticking through to the end of this very long video, and I hope you found some new movies to check out. With the exception of Mank, I do recommend every single one of these movies. And if you've seen any or all of them, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your own rankings in the comments below. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. Thanks for watching.